The Forbidden Seal, the stone found in the tekke. It was the year 1881. In a small town on the northern edge of Istanbul, a strange seal made of stone was discovered in the basement of a crumbling tekke, a dervish lodge. After the last dervish passed away, the building had been abandoned. During restoration efforts, one of the workers struck a hard object beneath a slightly raised patch of earth. What they unearthed was no ordinary stone. A circular black disc, about the size of a handspan, covered in unfamiliar symbols. The markings resembled neither Arabic nor Latin. They didn't look like writing. They felt like a warning. The seal was transported to Istanbul the next day, under the supervision of archivists from the Ministry of Foundations. Most of those present refused to even touch it, but just being in the same room was enough to make everyone uneasy. One official wrote, "When the seal entered the room, the air turned cold. The windows were closed, yet the curtains moved. Everyone was silent. But something inside whispered." The seal was handed over for examination to Rustam Halid Effendi, one of the most meticulous archivists of the time, a man of reason, untouched by superstition his whole life. Yet when he first held the seal in his hands, he noted, "This may not have been crafted by human hands. It's not cold, not lifeless. It feels like it's watching me." That night, the seal was locked in a glass container and stored in a secure archive room. But just before dawn, a night guard ran to Halid Effendi's chamber and cried out, "Sir, the seal is gone." When they entered the room, the glass box was still there. Its lock had been undone, but the seal was no longer inside. It was resting quietly on the desk. No one had entered. The door had been locked from the inside. That night, everyone remained silent, but faint whispers echoed from the archive building until morning, disturbing even the guards outside. And just before the call to prayer, someone had carved into the wall of the archive, "He who breaks the seal will vanish into the shadows." The next day, Halid Effendi submitted a petition to initiate an official investigation, but before it ever reached the palace, it vanished, and that same night, the second man assigned to stay in the seal's room went mad. Those who see go mad. Those who understand disappear. The name of the man who went mad was Mehmet Salih. He had worked in the archives for years, spoke to no one, and was barely noticeable. But that night, he was assigned to stay in the same room as the seal. All he had to do was make it to morning. Just wait. When they found him at dawn, he had scratched a single sentence into the wall with his own fingernails. "It is still there, but not in the same place." From that day on, Mehmet Salih never made eye contact with anyone again. He stopped eating, stopped speaking. By the third day, he had forgotten his own name. On the fifth, he uttered just one sentence. "It's calling me. It walks through the script." To prevent panic, his family was never informed. He was quietly admitted to Topkapi Asylum. But the seal remained in the same place, at least physically. Halid Effendi continued documenting the events with care, but his notes grew disjointed. The sentences became broken and erratic. The seal is not just a stone. This isn't the past. It's a passage. The symbols, they twitch. Some words are read not with eyes, but with the mind. One night, while alone in the archive, Halid Effendi wrote that he saw a shadow moving behind the half-open door. It looked like a human silhouette, but it had no feet. It didn't walk. It glided. At that moment, all the candles extinguished themselves. The next morning, 3 different staff members found a strange sentence tucked among Halid Effendi's papers. It was written in an unknown language, an alien script, but beneath it, in trembling Ottoman Turkish, a single word was scribbled: "You've been warned." No one knew who had written it, because that day, Halid Effendi never came to the archives. The events began to spread like a contagion. Every staff member who worked on the night the seal was present either resigned, vanished, or began to report the same dream. A blind woman, a seal embedded in her chest, and no tongue in her mouth, but still. She whispered something, constantly. The palace's silence. While documenting everything he had experienced, Khalid Effendi made a decision. He would deliver the report directly to the palace. The Ministry of Archives was no longer enough. This wasn't just about a mysterious stone. It was the unknown slipping into the state itself. At the time, the palace official responsible for documents was Mahmud Nureddin Bey, the Grand Vizier's chief scribe. Khalid Effendi met him in secret. In the back room of a quiet coffee house, he handed over all the records and observations about the seal. Mahmud Nureddin Bey studied the file carefully and said, "Someone wrote about this before us, but there's no record of them." The next day, an old shelf in the palace's restricted archives was opened. A single book was found, anonymous, unmarked, with symbols similar to those on the seal. On the first page, a chilling note was written. "This record brings death to those who remember it." No author was listed, but analysis dated the manuscript back to the 1740s. That meant the seal had existed nearly 140 years before it was discovered in the tekke. A brief panic spread through the palace, but it was never made public. On the contrary, the newspapers suddenly filled with cheerful distractions: zoo openings, new ferry lines, foreign gifts to the Sultan. All documents concerning the seal were sealed with a special royal insignia. They were moved to a section accessible only to the Sultan and the Grand Vizier. But 3 days later, everything vanished, not just the seal. All reports, notes, illustrations, gone. Khalid Effendi was summoned for questioning. As the palace officials listened to him, they began absent-mindedly writing the same phrase on their papers over and over: "Forget the seal. Forget the seal. Forget the seal." That day, Khalid Effendi was released, but he was handed one final document, a sheet of paper, completely blank, except for a single dried drop of blood in the shape of the seal. That night, Khalid Effendi wrote one last line in his journal: "I can no longer remember. But still I'm afraid." And by morning, he was gone. When they entered his home, he had left behind no shoes, no walking stick, only a blank journal on his desk, and a single candle still burning. Forgetting it may be the order itself. No one was surprised when Khalid Effendi disappeared, because by then, whispers within the palace had already started to repeat the same phrase. It is no longer a seal. It acts like a memory, but it isn't one. Within Topkapi Palace, there was a hidden section closed to the public. Behind the imperial treasury, a room with no visible door. Access was granted only to a few, and inside, they kept things that were not to be touched. The seal was placed there, silently. No file accompanied it. No official record was created. And those allowed inside were given just one instruction: do not remember what you see. Do not write what you hear. Years passed. The empire fell. The republic rose. Records were transferred to archives. But the seal remained, and still no one touched it. But in 1987, a historian discovered an unclassified note in the Topkapi archives, an old, yellowed sheet of paper. No writing, just faint, dried fingerprints along its edge. And under microscopic analysis, a single sentence emerged. It was not seen, it was not written, but it's still calling. After that, a fire broke out in the historian's home. The newspapers labeled it an accident caused by a cigarette. But in the fire investigation report, one more line was found. The door was locked. The windows were sealed. But someone else was inside. To this day, parts of Topkapi Palace remain closed to the public. And no one knows exactly where the seal is now. But some security guards claim that on certain nights, in the hours when the cameras stop working, they hear whispers. One guard, before retiring last year, left this note in the palace ledger. There is something there, something that has not been forgotten, and it may have run out of patience. If the seal is still there, and one day someone touches it by accident, what happens next? If you're still thinking about the seal after this video, then this wasn't just a story. Maybe it was calling you too. If you want to keep chasing forbidden archives, lost seals, and hidden truths, tap like. And to keep walking this dark path with us, don't forget to subscribe, because some truths only speak in shadows, and we dare to speak them out loud.